What is going on, Guardians? Dwarvrich here, and in this video I will be doing a solo flawless run of the Spire of the Watcher dungeon as Sunbreaker Titan. My previous Hunter solo flawless dungeon series received so much support that I'm going to be doing the same thing with both other classes, starting here with Titan. And if you are new here and you want to see the Hunter series, you can find that in the Solo Flawless Runs playlist on my channel. These runs will be with full walkthrough commentary, so if you are looking for a very consistent and reliable strategy that you can use to solo flawless these dungeons, that's exactly what you're going to find here. I will also not be using any artifact mods except the occasional champion stun, which will be especially relevant in this season, Season 19, because we have access to both solo operative and weakened clear, which will each boost our damage by 15%, for a combined total of about 32% more damage. The purpose of this series is to provide guides that are not specific to the season that they were recorded in, so that you can use these strategies anytime and regardless of how much of the artifact you've unlocked. For this run, I have opted to go with a Sunbreaker build with the Lorely Splendor helmet. If you want to see a breakdown of this build, let me know, by the way. The reason I haven't put one out yet is because I think it's a pretty standard build that a lot of people use and a lot of people already understand. But of course, I'm more than willing to do a full build video on it if you want to see a more in-depth breakdown. I'm running Melee Wellmaker, Well of Life, a couple copies of Font of Might, and Elemental Time Dilation to get all those buffs lasting longer. This build gives us excellent survivability against really the only threat in this dungeon, which is nonstop chip damage. So this first room here is basically a tutorial for one of the main mechanics of the dungeon, which is wires. So we're going to come over here and kill this yellow bar Minotaur, and it will give us a buff, Arctrician. Then we'll want to follow these wires until we find the origin point, which is right here for this one. So we shoot that, it'll light up. Then we'll follow the wire, and we will keep shooting the nodes along the wire until the whole wire is glowing blue like this. Along the way, we will keep throwing our hammer at things to make sunspots, get that cure, and that heal over time. That's one wire done, so on to the next one. Supplicants will start to spawn, but as long as we keep moving and occasionally blast our Wither Horde behind us, they won't pose much of a threat. If you're not familiar with the layout here, you don't actually have to go quickly. It's also perfectly viable to take the methodical approach and keep the adds under control. But if you are familiar, you can just run around, do the mechanic, and nothing's really going to threaten you much. For the final boss though, it is definitely worth it to put in the time to learn the routes there and do it quickly, but I'll cover that in more detail when we actually get there. Every time we successfully activate one of the nodes, we will get several seconds added on to our Arctrician buff. So if we do it with this method, we might not even have to kill another one of the Minotaurs. So every time you kill a Minotaur and they drop the pool, that will reset your Arctrician buff to 30 seconds. But if you're over 30 seconds, you won't lose any time from stepping in the pool. It only resets to 30 if you have less than 30 seconds remaining. With Lorely Splendor, a single Supplicant explosion will not kill us, so we're okay to run into the occasional Supplicant. But if we ever get hit by two at the same time, that is death. Whenever you're playing a very tanky build like this, it's important to know exactly where the limits of your tankiness are, or you're going to get yourself killed through overconfidence. Now that the mechanic tutorial room is done, we can go to the jumping section. Now this slide is extremely important. You want to go down until you just barely clear that ceiling, and then jump. If you jump too early, you'll smash into the opposite wall. If you jump too late, you will hit the sort of step, that threshold on the ground, and die. I want to say I died 4 or 5 times, I think, figuring out the timing for that jump. I'm just going to take a little trip through some crawl spaces here, and then come to the first real jumping section. So for this jumping section, there will be some adds spawning, but since we have so much passive healing in the build, we can just keep moving and ignore all of them. Although since we're going to be moving through this part so quickly, we won't get to appreciate Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 6, which plays in this area. During my initial solo learning run, I may have sat here for far too long, just listening to it. I'm a big fan of classical music, and it's one of my favorite symphonies. So we'll just want to jump up here to this platform. And then on this next platform, be a little careful because it's not completely flat. Make sure you have a solid footing before doing this next jump. And there's a tiny ledge over here. One of those jumps you have to just trust. Then jump up here. And then up these levels. Again, just run past the ads, they won't hurt us. Enemies in this game have stormtrooper aim as long as you're moving. Across here, and then we have the Leap of Faith. And that is the end of the jumping section. There's still a little bit more traveling to do to get to the first real encounter, but they're more navigational puzzles than actual jumping puzzles with the threat of death if you fall. The first encounter brings that threat back though. You have to be very careful of the geometry around you when you're doing the first encounter, or you'll probably end up falling. So we'll go to this opposite corner, jump up this tube.
Why else would the witness be interested in these files?
Go through these crawl spaces. Aim high on this jump. That ledge is not very friendly to mantling. And this brings us to the area for the first encounter. So for this encounter, we are ascending the Spire, so we're going to need to activate a series of elevators by powering them with the wires using the same mechanic we did in the tutorial room, and then ascend until we get our loot, all the while staying aware of what's around us and not falling off the map. The map will get more and more treacherous as we go up more levels. Again, we can just ignore all those ads behind us because we have passive healing. Alright, that's one of two finished. We might be able to get around to the other side and do this whole thing in one buff. If not, the yellow bar hobgoblins do periodically respawn, so you have all the time in the world to do this. In the beginning, the only enemies are going to be these red bar goblins, so not very threatening. But as we go on, we're going to encounter hydras and eventually supplicants. Yep, there are the hydras. We can either ignore them or we can stick them with a wither horde and kill them. I'm going to elect to ignore them, because this build is very good at ignoring things. And up to the second level. So you'll notice that the terrain is a little bit more treacherous up here. And as usual with solo flawless runs, when in doubt, take your time. There is no time limit on any of these encounters. I may have killed this guy too soon. Yep, ow, that hurts. It's alright, we can just wait for another to spawn. Anyway, as I was saying, we have all the time in the world for all the encounters in this dungeon. So when in doubt, take the methodical approach. This build is built around safety above all else. You could definitely clear this faster by using a Synthoceps build for massive damage on the hammer, but that doesn't have the same level of passive healing and saving you when you mess up that Lurley Splendor does. During my practice runs for this solo flawless, I did a lot of swapping back and forth between Synthoceps and Lurley, trying to see which one made more sense to use. And I found that while Synthoceps cleared significantly faster, Lurley is just so much safer. The only real advantage that Synthoceps had was that they would kill the yellow bar minotaurs in one hit, and it would kill the hydras in 2 hits. But the minotaurs die very quickly even without Synthoceps. And with the hydras, it's much safer to just stick them with the wither horde and wait. The really nice thing about wither horde is that you can hit a hydra in its immune shield, and it will still count as sticking it, and it'll take the full damage from the wither horde ticks. We have a buff refresh pool here, so we're just going to clear out a couple of these things and then keep following this wire. Alright, that's 1 out of 2 done again. We can probably get this done within the duration of our remaining buff. Right, there's the origin. There's one down here. Another one over here. Right now I'm just following the wires. But as this dungeon gets older and we do it more, we're going to get a lot more familiar with the locations of all the nodes to shoot, so we can do a much more optimal route. But part of what I want to show here is that this build and this strategy makes this dungeon so easy that you don't even need that kind of knowledge to get a solo flawless clear. So here we are on the third and final level, and this one has definitely the most jumping puzzle-like elements. But again, as long as we move deliberately and methodically, our build will keep us alive through all of the incoming ship damage while we can focus on just doing the mechanic. There's that passive heal coming in. Must have missed one. And there goes our hammer, but that's fine because class ability energy is more important to keeping us alive than the bonk hammer. Buff ran out, so we're going to have to grab a new one here. Gonna barricade for the sunspot so that we get Sol Invictus to recharge our melee faster. Alright, now back to looking. So this wire goes up here, crosses, goes over, and there's the node. This is the encounter I practiced the least prior to attempting the solo flawless. So I'm gonna have by far the most looking around wondering where stuff is. And that's one done, one to go. Here's the origin point. This hider's almost dead, so we might as well just kill it the rest of the way. These goblins are going to continue to tickle us while we focus on what's actually important. And we should be pretty close to the end here. Gonna try to move quickly because the buff is about to run out. There we go. And there we go, that is the first encounter done. Now all we have left is the first boss, and then a sort of jumping puzzle, environmental hazard section, and then final boss. I say all that's left, but the vast majority of the time in this run is going to be those two boss encounters. So we're going to want to hit this switch here, and then very carefully jump up on top of this glass. Okay, that's not going to make it. Reset. Here we are. So I love the boss design in this dungeon. I think both encounters are super engaging, they're cool, they're memorable. I hate the size of the boss's health pools. So for this boss, we start damage by grabbing the Arctrician buff from the Minotaurs and building the wires from the center of the map to the fuel cells on the edges, 4 of them in total. After we build all 4 wires to the fuel cells, the boss will come to where we built the last fuel cell, and all of its eyes will pop out. Then we'll need to shoot all the eyes before it blasts us off the map, and then we will have several seconds to deal damage as it backs away from us, ending with another AoE blast, which we will need to avoid. As we progress the mechanic here, progressively more adds are going to spawn. But since our build is very good at ignoring things, we're just going to tank the adds for the most part. If you're doing this on a build that cannot just tank all of the adds, obviously we'll need to keep them all under control. It'll take a little bit longer, but you do what you have to do. So that is 2 out of 4 fuel cells built, 2 more, and we will be able to start damage. You'll notice that I'm not taking any chances with the route. I'm making very safe jumps. And that is because, other than the constant incoming ship damage from the adds, the next biggest threat in this dungeon for a solo flawless is losing focus. Because the bosses have such inflated health pools, these encounters go long. And long encounters mean a lot of chances to lose concentration and mess up by jumping off the map, messing up a mechanic, just making any sort of stupid mistake. So we're almost done building this last wire here. And there are adds on the top of the walkway, which is good for us. We can try to get some buff stacking using Font of Might. All fuel rods activated. Now the boss is going to make its way over here. Going to bonk this guy. And try to pick up the hammer without picking up the well. And then shoot the eyes. Move forward and pick up the well because we're about to start damage. And Witherhoard, bonk with a... looks like I didn't get the hammer. And then we're going to do damage while he backs away. We're going to make sure that we're right next to the hole in the walkway so that we can drop down for cover from the explosion. Okay, that was a very messy DPS phase. Now it's rinse and repeat, and hopefully we can make up the damage on the subsequent phases. Right, Arctrician has been acquired, and we will start building. Other than missing the Radiant buff there, part of the reason that our damage is so low is that we are sort of under light. So the recommended power for this dungeon is 1570. We're doing it at 1589. So the first boss is at a power level of 1580, and the final boss is going to be a power level of 1590. Damage will continue to increase past the recommended power level until you are 20 levels over. Being 20 levels over is about a 14% increase over being at level. So later on in this season, when we all have more power, and then in subsequent seasons when our base power is much higher, it'll be a lot easier to solo these bosses in a more reasonable number of phases. Especially this season, if you add in Weakened Clear, and Solo Operative, neither of which I'm using for this video. Of course, if you have those mods, by all means use them. I do not currently have them unlocked, which is part of the reason that I am not using them for this guide. Even if I had them unlocked, I wouldn't use them because, again, part of the purpose of this series is to show that you don't need any of that stuff to get an easy solo flawless using this build and these strategies. Adding in those seasonal mods will not change anything about how we approach this run. It'll just make it even easier. And if you don't have them, well, you can still get an easy solo flawless clear without having to grind your artifact. So all fuel rods have been activated. Time for phase 2. Let's see if we can get a little more damage this time. I can't tell if I picked up that solar well. We'll just have to go with it. A tip for shooting these eyes quickly is actually to take your time and be deliberate, because precise is fast. If you're kind of just desperately spraying, you're going to waste a lot of shots and you'll end up killing the eyes more slowly. So proc bait and switch, throw hammer, and start shooting. Looks like we're missing Font of Might this time. One of these days I'll get all the buffs stacked up properly, I promise. Drop down, take cover from the explosion, and on to the next phase. Part of why this boss is especially punishing for solo play is because the faster you shoot the eyes, the more time you'll have to deal DPS. So when you're soloing, of course it's going to take much longer to kill all of the eyes. So not only are you one person shooting instead of 3, you don't have your teammates buffing you, you also have a shorter window to deal DPS. So everything is really working against you here when it comes to killing this boss quickly when solo. But fortunately, the only reason to do this dungeon solo flawless is for the triumphs and for the emblem. If you're going to be farming this, of course, do it in a team. As a team, this is probably one of the easiest dungeons in the game, but for a solo flawless, I would put this ahead of every other dungeon except duality. With this build in particular, one of the things that you can do to optimize your damage is to make sure that the last fuel cell that you build, so the one the boss will actually come to, the one you'll do damage from, is one that has ads spawning up top, on top of the walkway. Having ads on top of the walkway is how you can actually stack all of your buffs properly, because you'll need something to hammer kill and make a solar well just right before starting DPS, so that you have Radiant, you have Font of Might, which will stack multiplicatively for a massive damage boost. But of course, as you saw in the last 2 phases that I did, that's oftentimes easier said than done. So we've nearly activated our 3rd out of 4 fuel rods now. And the one that we've left for last does have ads walking along the top. So if everything goes well, we should be able to fully stack our buffs. Oh, I forgot to shoot the very first node. There we are. So I'll try to move here in a way that will hopefully lure the ads all the way down the walkway. Come on. Here they come. Just go down here, shoot these 2, then back up and start damage. It's so hard to tell if the solar wells were picked up with all that visual pollution in the way. Oh, I see Font of Might. Looks like it did. Oh well. Oh, a little slow on that last one. Oh, there were 2. Okay, this is going to be a short DPS phase. Loreley Splendor's about to keep us alive. See, this is why I'm confused about the collective community reaction to Loreley Splendor and Restoration being nerfed. The amount of healing that we get from Loreley Splendor and Restoration is still massive. Couple that with 40% damage reduction, and there are so few situations in which you would die post-nerf, in which you would not die pre-nerf. Even after the nerf, we are still in territory where, unless you get 1-shot or 2-shot extremely quickly, Loreley will keep you alive. Unless you do something completely and utterly stupid. The threshold for how much stupidity and how much carelessness is allowed may have changed a little bit with the nerf, but I think the people who are saying the exotic is dead are completely overreacting. It still does its job, which is, when you get hurt, it gives you such a strong heal over time that unless you do something suicidal, you're going to stay alive. And it does it completely passively. And you can see that with the way that we're playing right now, ignoring almost all of the ads and just running around, doing the mechanic, shooting the boss. And the number of times that we've been in any danger of dying in this encounter is 0. One more left, and then our next DPS phase. Oh right, it's this one. I always mess up the pathing on the easiest one somehow. Alright, come over here, boss. give me an opportunity to prove myself that I can actually buff stack properly. Never mind, we just have a bunch of harpies. Hey, that's one mag, so drop down because we don't have time for another. So if we are tight with the rest of this damage, it will be a 6 phase, which is right in line with what I predicted at the beginning. I'm pretty sure the ceiling for the build and the strategy and the light level, all that we're using here is 5 phases. So if we executed everything exactly perfectly with this setup, I'm pretty sure it would be a 5 phase. In the future, when we all have more power, and when we have the whole artifact unlocked, I think we can expect this to be a comfortable solo 4 phase. Which is still a pretty large boss health pool, but it's a lot better than 6. Alright, this is 2 down, 2 to go. I think I see ads spawning up top on the opposite side, so that's good for us. That means we can just do this one and then rotate around, do the last one, and we'll be able to stack our buffs. We just threw away our hammer, which is okay, we'll just have to play a little bit more carefully. And I really mean only a little bit. Normally for Hammer Titan, I will run the melee ability refund on finisher mod, but for Loreley, I prefer utility kickstart, so that I can use my barricade to make a sunspot on demand much more frequently. It looks like I was wrong, and there were not in fact ads spawning up top over here, but it'll be okay. I still have faith that we can pull off this 6 phase. Right, time to shoot the eyes. Barricade, get a pre-heal going, and start refunding our hammer so that we have it in time to proc Radiant. And again, go for precision here. Precise is fast, sloppy is slow. Okay, stick a Witherhoard for bait and switch, proc Radiant, and start shooting. And we're done. One more phase should do it. It doesn't look like there are any Minotaurs spawned anywhere. That's odd. Oh, I hear one. There it is. Oh, it's always nice when they don't teleport out of your first Witherhoard shot. Those harpies all decided to stand in the pool. It's their own choice. Even though for the most part we can ignore ads, I'm going to clear out a couple here and there when I can. Alright, it looks like to our left and to our right we have ads on top of the walkway. So we're just going to go around to the left and we'll end at the walkway on the right. Alright, that's one done. We can clear out some of these ads here because we're not concerned about keeping them for buffs. Start on the second. And just like with the previous encounter, once this dungeon is a little older and we're all more familiar with all of the exact spots for the nodes, we will be able to probably activate multiple fuel rods from one spot by sort of sniping the nodes across the map. But that doesn't change the core strategy that we're using here. So it's just something you can add in if you're comfortable with all the positioning. So we're building the last one now, and there are still ads on top, so we're going to be able to use them to stack our buffs, for real this time. Right, here comes the boss. Barricade. Wait a little bit before throwing the hammer. I don't want that well timing out. What are you doing, guy? There he is. Looks like we're going to be shooting eyes first and hammering the goblins later, which is a lot easier for buff stacking. Just the potential issue is the goblins that are still alive getting in the way when you're trying to shoot eyes. I think my hammer hit something. Hopefully it did. Oh, there's the full buff. That's what we wanted to do this whole time. One more hit. There it is. First boss down. So now all we have is one more traversal and environmental hazards puzzle area, and then the final boss.
They're driving the reactor core to a meltdown. It's going prompt critical. Those power surges were intentional. Get to the reactor, lest we lose everything.
So as you're dropping down here, keep in mind that although in theory the game's never going to kill you if you fall into a flat surface, no matter how hard you fall, we all know that Destiny's physics engine can be a little bit stupid sometimes, especially when it comes to what it is and isn't willing to count as a flat surface. So to be safe, just break your falls on the way down. So here we're going to be introduced to a new mechanic, which is the red wires. Whereas the yellow wires will save our progress after we shoot them. Once we turn a yellow wire blue, it will stay blue. With the red wires, there's a timer. So as soon as we activate one red wire, after several seconds, all red wires will be deactivated. So we have to hit all of the nodes within the time limit. Once we kill enough ads, we'll get this Minotaur spawn. That'll give us the Arctrician buff. Gonna retrieve this hammer before it despawns. Just clean up some more of these ads. And then if you stand on this platform right here, you can see all 5 of them. Do not be standing on the floor when it opens up, it will kill you. And now we're going to do something very similar to the infamous drop in the Pit of Heresy dungeon. And my advice for approaching this is the same. Wait for your opportunity. Go, and when you do go, go decisively. Oh, I messed up there, but fortunately, this first drop is very forgiving. All those slower moving blades will do is push you around, they won't actually kill you. You only instantly die if you hit the fast moving blades. So in this room we're going to do the same thing, but with a slightly more difficult placement of the red wire nodes. Same as before, we need to kill all the ads, or most of the ads, before the Minotaur will spawn. Right, this should be enough to trigger the Minotaur spawn. Gonna clean some of these guys up before grabbing the buff. Actually, we might as well just clean up everything so we don't have the visual pollution of getting shot at when we're trying to do these nodes. Okay, so from up here you can get 4 of them. Then drop down for the 5th. Being very careful not to land in the part of the floor that opens up. So here we're going to have a slightly harder version of the fan drop. We're going to be dropping across. Again, just wait for the opening and then go. And for this one, we're aiming for that hole right there. It's a more forgiving jump than it looks like. And that brings us to the final puzzle here. Here there's going to be a total of 5 red wire nodes that we have to activate. 4 of them are around the outsides of the walls, and then 1 is right there where that Hydra just spawned. And the timer is pretty short, so we're going to have to actually jump through the middle area with those arc pulses in order to shoot all the nodes in time. But as long as we time it correctly, we will not die to the arc. Killing the Hydra is easy because we can just stick it with a Wither Horde and wait. And then a second Hydra is going to spawn alongside the Minotaurs once we've cleared the ads. Then same deal, we're just going to stick it with a Wither Horde. And follow-up shot because one Wither Horde doesn't quite do it all the way. Now that it's calm here, we can shoot these nodes. So 1, 2, jump into the middle. 3. Out the other side, but be very careful of the arc. They will kill you even with Loreleon. 4, 5. And weird, it looks like something strange happened. We had a very short amount of time. Anyway, let's do it again. So that's the first 2. 3. 4, 5. There we are. Not sure what happened there. Now we drop down here, and that will take us to the final boss's room. Get comfortable because this will probably take a while. But unlike certain other lengthy encounters, like the Fallen Shield and Grasp of Avarice, this encounter is actually really fun, and it does not present the danger of falling asleep while doing it. So this dungeon is going to combine everything that we've learned so far. They're going to be red wires, which you can see in front of us right now, and yellow wires in the back. Just double checking my mods here. Right, everything's good. So immediately we're going to have a Hydra spawn on the left and on the right, as well as a horde of supplicants and goblins. We'll want to pre-Wither Horde the ads that spawn, and then Wither Horde the Hydras, each twice. It's going to take 2 Wither Hordes to kill those Hydras fully if you stick them. All the while, the boss is going to be following us around, and since the boss is a wyvern, it hurts. So do not stay next to the boss, because as we all know from doing Glassway, wyvern blasts are deadly. The supplicants, of course, are very aggressive, so we can either kill them with a hammer or with the Wither Horde, but I find that they're a little bit too fast to actually die to the Wither Horde pool before they make it all the way through. Or we can jump over them and bait them to explode, and they will barely scratch us if they explode while we're jumping over. Once both Hydras are dead, we will get the Minotaur spawns. Don't want to kill that one right now because the boss is next to it. It's running at us, so that gives us an opportunity. So now with the Arctician buff, we'll want to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nodes. That will open up the door in the middle of the room. And it will also activate 2 of the yellow wire paths. So we'll need to find those. Okay, it looks like it's the ones on the other side. It's going to be completely random each time which ones it's going to activate. So since they're on the other side, we'll want to bait the boss over here to give us more time to build the yellow wires. Looks like there are lots of supplicants here, so we'll need to take care of those first. Now the boss is over here. If we stay ahead of it, we should be able to build this first one. Now in this encounter, if you're soloing, there is no time to look at the wires and follow them. You have to at least somewhat know where all the nodes are ahead of time. Because the boss is always following you around and the supplicants are so aggressive, you need to stay on the move, or you're going to get either blasted by the boss or blown up by a supplicant. And you can't really stay on the move if you're just staring at wires and trying to figure out where they go. So if you're going for a solo flawless on this dungeon, I would advise doing what I did and spending a while just running through the mechanics on the boss. Not even trying that hard to DPS him, just build the wires over and over until it's almost muscle memory. And once you know the routes, you know which nodes to shoot for each of the wires, this boss will become free. Once we've built both of the yellow wires, it will prime the reactor to explode, so I want to get out of here. And then we're going to lock the boss in the room by shooting the red wires again as soon as they become active. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the boss is locked into the room. And when it explodes, it'll strip his shield, and we'll have a DPS phase. We're going to linear him as long as we can, and then as soon as he gets closer, he'll become a lot more difficult to crit, so we're going to switch to Hammer of Soul or Super. Normally I would have left a goblin alive in the middle of the room to use for more buff stacking, but I didn't, so our damage here is going to be a little mediocre. And then as soon as the boss goes immune, back to killing the Hydras. So Wither Horde, run away. Since we're under light now, it's taking us 2 hammers to kill the red bar goblins before we stack up Roaring Flames. This back reactor room is where we're going to want to do most of our work from when we are taking out those Hydras, because the boss can't actually fit through those narrower passages on the left and the right. The boss can only fit through the big central door when that's open. So before it's open, we're completely safe to just hang out here and stick Wither Hordes in the Hydras until they die. Now the Minotaurs are up, so we can come and carefully, always stay on the move here, because you never know when a Supplicant might be on you. Yep, there we go. Now it's open. So we're going to look around for which wires got activated. Looks like it's both on this side. And the boss is there, so we're going to have to lure it away. Right, now we're good to build this one. Couple supplicants, so we're going to drop a pool. Then that's 1 built, or it should be. I don't think I missed one. There we go. I just didn't shoot it well enough. Now we're going to come back over here and build the other one. Whenever you run past the boss like this, listen for the wyverns charge up and dive attack, and if you hear that happening, dodge it. Alright, time for phase 2. So again, we're going to wait for the red wires. That's 5. And we have goblins here for our damage buff. And they decided to die to the sunspot. That's great. It's going to be a very small damage phase. And I even forgot to reload my linear. That's just great. It's been a long day, okay? I'm running on very little sleep right now because I got off work just a few hours before daily reset, and I wasn't about to miss the dungeon drop. This is also my first time going for a day 1 solo flawless, so I've been going pretty hard between learning this dungeon blind solo, developing and practicing the strats for solo flawless, and then executing it. And we are back to our safety room, which also gives us a very nice choke point to witherhoard any supplicants that decide to come charging through the hallway, which they normally don't, but occasionally they will. So one more witherhoard in each of these hiders should do it. Both should be dead around now, yep. Now the Minotaurs. I hear supplicants down there, yep. This is why you should always play with sound on. It gives you so much information. Someone that I often raid with plays with sound off, and I don't know how he does it. So now we'll shoot the nodes. I don't know why it said override failed. I guess some damage must have clipped them earlier. Kite the supplicants while we shoot, and they will just harmlessly blow up behind us. Looks like it's both on this side this time. We'll drop a wither horde behind as we go through in case any supplicants come running through. And that's one done. Again, don't be afraid of supplicants as long as you have enough space to jump over them and run away. In those hallways is where you really don't want to get caught by supplicants because there isn't enough vertical room to clear the explosion. Okay, next phase. There's a goblin there, perfect. We're gonna wait until damage is almost ready to start and then make this solar well and get this radiant buff. We want as much of the buff to overlap with damage phase as possible. Flinch is a very fun and interesting mechanic. Alright, looks like we're on 9 phase pace, roughly. So back to the reactor room to kill the Hydras. So the Wither Horde nerf, in my opinion, is not even that bad. Because the speed at which it kills adds is still the same. The only thing that it really affects is the ammo efficiency, and it makes it slightly less fire and forget. But since Wither Horde was already in a league of its own when it comes to damage and ammo efficiency, the nerf really barely changes anything. It still never runs out. I'm running 0 grenade launcher ammo finders, and my Wither Horde ammo has never even been close to running out here, and I'm using it liberally. And the other use case for Wither Horde which is sticking it into a single tough target and just letting it do its thing, is completely unaffected by the nerf. Right, door is open, time to build. The boss is right behind us, so we need to move a little quickly here. Oh, I just messed up the route. It's not that one, it's this one. Here we are. Then come through and build the one right next to it. Okay, the boss is going to walk up those stairs, and if we're quick, we should be able to only get hit once. Yep, that is why we use Loreley Splendor. But again, like I talked about before, you have to be calculated with the risks that you take. If you get hit by 2 big hits at once, it doesn't matter, you die. But as long as there's only one thing threatening you, Loreley will keep you alive through all sorts of stuff. So as long as it's just one supplicant, or we're just running past and taking one hit from the boss, we're going to be completely fine. So that should be once they find the ending point. Okay, it looks like Arctician ran out and I didn't notice. It's no big deal, we'll just go and grab another one. These Minotaurs infinitely respawn. Want to kite the boss back here just a little bit so we have a little more time to shoot. Here it is, time to go to damage. Looks like there are not goblins here, so I'll have to grab a shorter buff off of the Minotaurs, or shorter by the time damage actually starts. The Minotaurs will despawn as damage begins, so we need to kill them a little bit earlier than we would want to. Yeah, we'll only get a couple seconds of Radiant. Ah yes, flinch, my favorite mechanic. Damage is over, time to go back to the safe room, or the safe for now room, and kill the Hydras. If you wanted to do this with a Syntheseps build, instead of a Loreley build, you'd want to stay in the other room, proc Syntheseps off of the pack of ads that spawns, and just 2-bonk each of the Hydras real quick. You would end up killing the boss significantly faster with the Syntheseps build compared to Loreley, but it's not quite as safe. And as I often say in a solo flawless run, take the safe option over the fast option every time. There is no reward for going fast. You get the same emblem either way, you get the same triumph either way. And in this case, you get the same increased chance for the exotic bow either way. I really appreciate that they added the mechanic starting with duality, where if you did some of the dungeon triumphs, you would get a higher chance at the exotic. Make it so that there's actually a tangible reason to do these kinds of challenge runs other than just for the fun of it or for the cool emblem you can flex. Now they just need to do the same thing for raids. I find it pretty weird that they did it for dungeons, received such good feedback about it, and are just not doing it for raids. Especially since dungeons are pretty much supposed to be like mini raids for 3 people. Alright, we're about to take some damage, so I'm going to pre-heal. There we go. Remember, you can do some really risky stuff with a tanky build, but the risks always have to be calculated. There are some supplicants following us, so we will give them a Witherhorde pull in this hallway. Okay, that's a lot that just spawned. We need to bait them into exploding. And now the boss is here, so we're going to need to be very careful. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm missing the one that the boss is standing directly on top of. Time to bait him to the other room and try again. I guess in the meantime we can start building the other wire. Oh, I missed that note up there. Whoops. And hello, boss. Time to leave. So now that the boss has been baited, we can finish building that first one. I must be remembering this route wrong. Oh right, it's this one. That one, and there it is. So now we just have to finish building the other one. And the boss is exactly where we want him, on the opposite side of the room. Okay, that's a lot of supplicants. We'll just let them deal with themselves here. And damage phase. We're a little bit low on Arctrician, but it should give us enough time. Yep, we're good. And wait a little bit. Then when it's about to go, hammer a goblin. Well, I just forgot how to play Destiny 2. He's getting a little close, so we'll super. Alright, halfway there. And back to the safety room. The other Hydra should be within one Witherhorde of dying because we did leave a pool under him. Looks like it just died. Yep, here come the Minotaur spawns. Good to deal with some of these adds before shooting the wires. Alright, our attrition's almost out, so we'd better just do it now. Yeah, that gave us a pretty good amount of time on the buff. Okay, it looks like it's one on this side and one on the other side. Right, that's one. And the other is going to be on the opposite side of the room from where we come out here. So we're coming out this way so that the boss follows us to this side of the room, and then it gives us as much time as possible to build the opposite wire. Right, damage again. Even though this boss takes a lot of phases, I do like how it's pretty quick to start damage, unlike the Tentacle Harpy boss. The reactor's about to blow up, so now we'll hammer. I don't appear to have gotten Font of Might. It's hard to tell. Oh, I did. It's 2022 and we can only see 4 buffs on our screen. This might actually be a 10 phase. So even though 10 phases takes a while to do, as long as you stay alert, stay focused, and keep kiting the supplicants properly, keep moving to safe areas of the map, keep track of where the boss is, there's really very little threat to dying. The build will keep you alive through the chip damage, so all you have to worry about is not getting instant killed. So one more Wither Horde should finish off these Hydras. Here come the Minotaurs. Our boss is pretty close, should be right behind us. Yep, there it is. I hear supplicants, so now we move. Get the boss to walk over this way. And then build from the other side. Spawn trap these guys with the Wither Horde. And that's one done. There are supplicants behind us, but as long as we keep moving, they'll just blow themselves up. The boss is going to hit us. Okay, he's winding up his dive, so we'll just avoid that and we're fine. And damage. We don't want to hammer that supplicant because that'll make a sunspot and the goblins might die to it prematurely. So he's just going to let it blow itself up. Alright, now we hammer. And burn. I swear I always miss the first shot. Forgot to Wither Horde before hammering, whoops. It's probably not going to make a difference in the number of phases. If he's left with a couple pixels of health left, we'll know that it did. So we'll stick a pool where that one's about to spawn. Cross over and stick the other Hydra. Finish this one off. And finish the other one off. Alright, here come the Minotaurs, so we go back in. I'm not quite comfortable with where the boss is right now, so I'm going to kill the other side. And we should be good to open the door right away. It looks like we're building both of them on this side. So in between this and the next one, we will want to kite the boss to the opposite side. Whoa, where did those supplicants come from? They must have spawned behind us along with those goblins. Damage time. Looks like we have plenty of ads here to stack our buffs on. I'm gonna hit this one early because we have others. If I could consistently land crits, that would be amazing. In my testing, I briefly tried rockets, both Gallarhorn and Legendary, and they were not pulling nearly as much damage as linears. Rockets might be doable in a fire team if you're going for like a massive buff stacking one phase strat, but for solo, I think that linear is definitely the way to go. Especially since with rockets, the ammo economy is terrible. So one phase, you're going to blow through all 7 of your rockets. And then after that, you have to find several heavy bricks before you can do another damage phase, whereas with linears, a single heavy brick will take you through a whole damage phase if you're running something with triple tap or 4th times the charm. Otherwise, 2 bricks will do it. Right, both Hydras should be dead now, and the Minotaurs are spawning in. It's possible that we could finish off the boss here if everything goes perfectly. And if it looks like the boss is going to be on a sliver of health, like it's going to come down to the wire, the important thing is not to get greedy. You can always do another phase. Don't throw away a whole solo flawless attempt just because you tried to take one less phase to kill the boss. It looks like both other side opened up, which is perfect because we ended up kiting the boss over there. After building that one, we'll want to come out the opposite side to get the boss to move away from the second wire we're building. And we'll go start building. A few supplicants that we'll have to watch out for. As long as we know where they are, they don't pose a threat. It's the supplicants that catch you by surprise that can actually be dangerous. Fortunately, they make a very distinct sound. We took a little bit long there killing the supplicants, so we're gonna lure the boss back outside. Right, that should be enough time. Alright, let's see if we can kill him here. Looks like there are not any ads, so it looks like it's going to have to take one more phase after this. Yeah, this is definitely going to take one more. Alright, so since the boss is so low on health, we're going to set up for this last phase to be as safe as possible because we can afford to. We're going to start by doing our usual thing where we just stick the Hydras with 2 Wither Hordes to kill them. Okay, when you hang out in a hallway for this long, the boss is going to be right there, so we'll go through quickly. Take care of some of these supplicants. Okay, now it's safe to grab the buff and start building. One, two, three, four, five. Start building here. We did not lure the boss to the other side, so we're going to have to move somewhat quickly. We should be fine. I appear to have missed one of the nodes. Okay, now the boss is all over that part of the room, so we will want to lure the boss out of the room before we go over there and find out what we missed. In the meantime, we can get a little bit of this one done. Okay, we didn't lure him for long enough, that was my mistake. Our buff ran out, so we're going to have to grab a fresh one. Yeah, we're missing something on both of these. As long as we stay calm and keep moving, though, we're going to stay alive just fine. Wow, my tired brain is really showing right now. But on the bright side, it shows how easy this solo flawless is with this strategy, that even somebody who's half asleep can do it. Okay, there's the one I was missing. There's still one more. Not going to take any chances getting blasted by the boss here. There's a supplicant following us, and if they hit us at the same time, that's death. Okay, supplicants dealt with. Alright, time to do the last damage phase. Super is almost up, so as soon as the boss gets even remotely close to us, we're popping Hammer of Soul. crit, stick a Witherhoard, or miss a Witherhoard more accurately. Miss a bunch of crits. And pop Hammer of Soul and kill him like a true Titan. And he is dead. That was a solo flawless run of the Spire of the Watcher dungeon as Sunbreaker Titan. You can find a dim link to the build that I used for this run in the description below, and if you do want a full build breakdown, let me know in the comments and I will add this to the list of build videos for this season. Drop a like if you found this video helpful or entertaining, and if you want to see more Destiny 2 content, including endgame build videos, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one, Guardians.
Explore the universe. That time never came. A matter of finite seconds lost in the margins then. Now, there's only the want of more. But we learn to make do, young wolf, and turn the edge of defeat into victory.